Every government tells you it protects you. Every central bank insists it manages stability. Every citizen believes that money, their money, is safe. But behind every crisis, every emergency measure, every inflationary wave, lies the oldest trick in the book: control through confusion. Governments don't need to seize your wealth outright. They simply design systems that drain it slowly, invisibly, and permanently. Across thousands of years, from the Roman Empire to modern Washington, London, and Brussels, the playbook hasn't changed. They inflate, they borrow, they devalue, they regulate, and they disguise each as a patriotic duty, a public service, or an economic necessity. The language evolves: stimulus, quantitative easing, fiscal expansion, modernization, but the effect is identical. Money flows upward, debt trickles downward, and ordinary citizens wake up poorer than the day before. This is not a conspiracy, it's a design. Because when people understand how money really works, power becomes fragile. So they build a system that keeps you obedient, not with chains, but with balance sheets. This is the history of the financial tricks governments use to keep you broke. Every empire begins with a promise: trust us and we'll protect you. In exchange for taxes, you get safety. In exchange for obedience, you get order. And in exchange for your money, you get stability, or at least the illusion of it. But that stability always costs more than it delivers. Because when governments can print or borrow at will, money stops being a measure of value and becomes a tool of manipulation. Inflation is the most elegant trick of all. It's a tax without legislation, the perfect theft. No one votes for it. Few understand it, but everyone pays for it. When prices rise, the average person blames the store, the corporation, the market. Rarely do they see the real culprit: a monetary policy that deliberately erodes the purchasing power of their labor. This sleight of hand is as old as empire itself, and its first great practitioner was Rome. 2,000 years ago, the Roman Empire ruled the known world. Its coins, the silver denarius, were trusted across continents. But war is expensive, and emperors were ambitious. To fund their armies and monuments, they discovered an ingenious shortcut: debase the currency. By gradually mixing cheaper metals into the denarius, they produced more coins without finding more silver. For a generation, it seemed like prosperity. The government spent freely. The people felt richer. But reality cannot be minted. As silver content fell from nearly 100% under Augustus to less than 5% by the 3rd century, prices exploded. Soldiers demanded higher pay. Merchants hoarded real metal. Ordinary Romans saw their savings vanish. It was the first great inflationary collapse, and it taught rulers a dangerous lesson. If you control the money, you control the people. The pattern spread. In medieval Europe, monarchs shaped coins or re-stamped them with new values. When funds ran short, kings invented another trick: forced loans. Merchants and nobles were invited to lend money to the crown, a euphemism for extortion. Sometimes they were repaid, often not, and usually in devalued currency. But even then, the system worked. The rulers stayed in power, the creditors stayed cautious, and the common people bore the hidden cost in inflation, shortages, and stagnation. Every emergency measure became permanent. Every short-term fix became policy. The result was predictable. Governments learned they could fund extravagance today and make the people pay tomorrow. Debt became national, and with it came a new form of power. By the 17th century, Europe's monarchs had perfected a new trick: national debt. In 1694, the English crown, broke after decades of war, allowed private financiers to form the Bank of England. In return for lending money to the state, they received something revolutionary: government bonds backed by future taxes. It was elegant, profitable, and permanent. For the first time in history, a government could borrow endlessly without asking permission from its citizens. The wealthy lent money to the crown. The government paid interest using taxes collected from the public. The rich earned income. The poor funded it. Debt became a machine that converted public obligation into private wealth. And as Britain expanded its empire, the model followed. Wars, colonies, infrastructure, all financed by perpetual borrowing. And every pound borrowed meant new taxes on future generations. By the 19th century, the same pattern spread across Europe and America. Governments promised prosperity while quietly mortgaging their people's futures. When recessions hit, they printed more. When wars came, they borrowed more. When debts grew, they redefined what money meant. The Bank of England was no longer an exception. It was a template. And from that template grew every modern central bank on earth. Fast forward to the 20th century. The gold standard, once a restraint on political spending, collapsed. Currencies became fiat, backed only by government decree. Central banks gained the power to create money from nothing, and politicians learned to treat that power as a cure for every crisis. But what began as monetary policy soon became monetary addiction. Inflation returned as the perfect modern weapon. By expanding the money supply faster than the economy grows, governments dilute the value of every unit of currency in circulation. To the public, wages rise. To economists, the economy grows. But to anyone holding savings, the truth is clear. Your purchasing power is quietly stolen. It's a tax that never appears on your payslip, debated in no parliament, yet collected every single day. When governments overspend, they issue bonds. Those bonds are bought by banks, pension funds, and foreign investors, all expecting interest payments funded by taxpayers. The poor fund the interest. The rich collect it. Every bailout, from 2008 to 2020, followed the same pattern. Losses socialized, profits privatized. In 2008, ordinary families lost homes and jobs. Banks that caused the crisis were rescued. The narrative was stability. The result was the largest upward transfer of wealth in modern history. After 2008, central banks began quantitative easing, printing trillions to buy government and corporate bonds. The liquidity inflated stock and property prices, enriching asset holders, the top 10%, while wages stagnated and living costs rose. It was Rome's debasement all over again, only digital. Governments promise security in old age through pension systems, but most are pay-as-you-go schemes. Today's workers fund today's retirees. The contributions aren't invested. They're spent immediately. When demographics shift or budgets shrink, the only options left are to raise retirement ages, cut benefits, or print the difference. Another trick disguised as responsibility. Complexity became the new camouflage. Thousands of pages of regulations, tax codes, and financial laws are written not for the public, but for those who can afford the lawyers to navigate them. Every loophole favors the entrenched. Every rule makes entry harder for newcomers. And every reform protects the system itself. Governments claim to regulate corporations. In truth, they co-govern with them. Most citizens believe taxes are what they see: income, sales, property. But the real taxes are invisible. Inflation, every time the money supply expands, your savings lose value. The number in your account stays the same. What it buys does not. Debt. Every bond issued in your country's name is a promise you and your children must keep. The interest never sleeps and repayment never ends. Regulation. Each new rule increases the cost of compliance, pushing small competitors out and concentrating wealth in fewer hands. War finance. Wars are fought with debt, not gold. Bonds turn conflict into investment. The blood price is paid by soldiers, the profit by bondholders. Complexity. The most insidious trick of all, confusion. When systems grow too complex to question, people stop trying. When laws are too long to read, citizens assume they must be fair. And when everyone's equally lost, power hides in plain sight. Complexity is not a flaw of modern finance. It's the feature that keeps you from understanding how it works. Look closely at history's most powerful nations, and you'll see the same pattern repeated. Trust, citizens believe their government protects them. Expansion, spending grows faster than revenue. Debasement, money supply expands to cover the gap. Inflation, savings erode, debt piles up. Crisis, public outrage demands reform. Reset, a new currency, a new policy, a new promise. The players change, the trick does not. From the Roman denarius to the Weimar mark to the modern dollar, each cycle ends the same way, with the public poorer, the elite richer, and trust in money once again shattered. Three timeless lessons emerge from this 2,000-year deception. 1. Inflation is not a mistake, it's a policy. Governments prefer erosion over explosion. Debasement preserves appearances while quietly redistributing wealth. 2. Debt is control disguised as generosity. Every stimulus today becomes a tax tomorrow. Every loan comes with dependency attached. 3. Understanding is resistance. Ignorance is the system's most valuable asset. The less you question, the easier it is to drain you. Financial literacy is not rebellion, it's self-defense. The financial tricks governments use are not crimes of greed. They're strategies of survival, ways to maintain power when trust begins to fray. But history shows the same outcome every time. When money becomes illusion, collapse becomes inevitable. You cannot control inflation or policy, but you can control awareness. You can choose real value in skills, assets, and knowledge that no policy can inflate away. When you see the trick, it stops working on you. If this gave you a new way to see money, power, and history, subscribe, because the next illusion is already being prepared.